whatever onto your. Well, I'm okay with it.
Are
Simon,
you
you all
good?
right?
Simon,
No,
sorry,
perfect.
we just jumped in
Yeah.
without asking you. Sorry.
Let's
No,
get
no,
Simon's
perfect. No
consent
problem
before I hit the button.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, maybe I should just start from the beginning and just explain who I
Yay!
am.
I'm training her, Simon.
at all. Excellent.
She's okay. My name is Mandy Young, and my passion is as an eco-psychologist and psychologist is to not only empower people to live great relationships with themselves, with other people, but I like one of my mentors as an eco-psychologist is somebody called Howard Kleinbell. And he says psychological understandings, ripples, theories are like ripples on a pond. They kind of build
Mm,
upon and emanate from one another. And I guess for me, the outermost ripple now is the environment. So taking people into nature as a place of healing, personal development, self-discovery. It's just a really balanced system. And my experience personally has been that as I've spent time with different species, I've kind of felt drawn to those species because I had something really valuable to show me. So tonight I have the great privilege of being with Joy and Simon, and we're going to explore what it is to be a family in an organizational setup or a team, and is there any difference between those two? And the role models we're using to launch us into a discussion are the elephants, who are really great at being family, and the meerkats, who are really good at being team. And I think that's going to inspire some great discussions that are relevant for the culture of organizations. So I would like to just share a video with you now. We're going to launch into our first video, which is about the elephants. So what I'd like to ask Joy and Simon to do is, as we go through the video, just write down any thoughts, um, feelings, ideas that kind of just bubble up as you're watching the video. I'm not going to go over it twice, so it does need a little bit of your presence and your attention. And then we'll discuss it afterwards about the elephants before we looked at the video on the meerkats. So I'm going to
sounds good.
just, sounds good. Okay, great. I'm going to share the screen. Let me know if you can you see this okay? Let me just make it bigger. Can you see the video okay?
Yeah, all good. Thank you.
Okay, brilliant.
On their search for food and water, the herds get bigger. Elephants can live to 70 years old and have large, extended families. Relatives and friends meet and join forces as they travel. Both bulls add muscle to the convoy, following the matriarch as she leads them all to water. But this family is on a different mission. They heard alarm calls, and they're coming to the rescue. They're too late. A calf stands over his dead mother. He will protect her body with his life. The lions wait. They know he can't stay here forever. The herd waits too, until he is ready to leave. This is his family. He will be safe with them.
So I've got a couple of questions I could ask, but I think rather than doing that, I'd rather hear from both of you, your immediate impressions about being family in that situation.
Well, the ending was very powerful, just obviously someone losing someone, and the grief and the protection, and ultimately having a larger family to protect them. But I didn't realize how old elephants got, 70 years old. And I put down that the way that they join together and greet each other, that was with their trunks. I had not seen that before. And then the march and the matriarch at the front. So I was surprised by that as well.
So those are the three things that really stood out for you, Joy. Just that there's this incredible family support and protection in times of grieving. And when they greet each other, that's a very valuable connecting way of connecting, and that they have a matriarch who leads them. How would you say, I know we talking about can talk about quite personal things, or we could, with animals, we can talk on different levels. We can talk quite personally, or we could talk within a business organization. So what would you say would be the valuable things in a business organization of having this network of people who are very supportive? Not necessarily, your loss might not be a mother, like the little calf lost its mother, but it might be something really important, like a major project, or a really important thought that you had that you really wanted to pioneer and see take wings. But it kind of dies before it even flies. What would you say is the value of family in that way in an organization?
I'll hand that one to Simon.
Cool, thank you. Yeah, I think that last scene on with the the mother and the little elephant sort of standing over the mother was incredibly powerful. I was thinking before I came on a quote, and I was trying to find it, and I knew bits of it, and I hadn't realized it's actually from Proverbs in the Bible.
Okay.
And it's, a friend loves at all times, and a brother is born for adversity. And what I've experienced in workplaces, that I would say that there's more of a family feel, that if you go through adversity with people, whether that's a project failing, or even worse than that, some personal adversity that a colleague has had, and you're able to walk with them through that. That's how you can build that family connection within it. And I was trying to sort of compare and contrast over my career different workplaces, where I probably worked with one colleague probably about 5 or 6 years. I knew nothing about their personal life whatsoever. They were very, very private, and that's a it's about personal choice whether people want to share and stuff, and they shouldn't feel they need to. But probably the culture wasn't there for them to do that either. They used to take the whole of December off every year, and
Wow.
nobody knew what they were doing, where they were going. It was a very sort of strange occurrence. And yet in other businesses I've worked in, you don't have to live in each other's pockets, but there is a sharing of I'm really struggling today. I've had some personal issues, or I'm really struggling today because this has happened, and people are open and honest. If that's encouraged as part of the culture. Joy, how about yourself?
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, I have to go quite far back to work out being in a team, but so I started working for myself in 2012, so such a long time ago. But the team, one of the strongest sort of companies that I worked for, there was a culture of everyone knew each other. We went out for lunch. We had regular, I don't know, every couple of months there'd be get-togethers for everyone. Part of it sometimes felt a bit I didn't particularly want to join in, but then you kind of knew, a bit like what you said, Simon, to help everyone to feel part of something. Then you take part. You have to take part,
Mm.
and you miss out on things actually. So I think the culture that they created was really one of the best ones that I've come across. I've had been in companies since then where you know, you do know a little bit about people's lives. Sometimes you have a certain number of people that you might stay with, but the bigger organizations, you always feel as though it's just kind of you against another group, these silo type things.
Yeah.
So the first company, even though it was growing, it was a marketing company, they're expanding, it seemed to bring everybody along. So yeah, that's my kind of experience of family within companies. And I also think that with it's interesting for me when I leave companies, whether some of those relationships can last. And I think
Exactly.
I've always found I've had kind of a love-hate relationship with that because I've sort of wanted to stay in touch with people and I've tried, and then they've kind of fallen apart. And that's
Yeah.
always made me feel quite sad. I've always thought, oh my God, I thought Mandy, I thought Simon, I thought you were my best buddies, and now that I'm not part of the company, you won't even give me the time of day. It's like,
Yeah.
but it's not happen. It doesn't happen to everyone. My sister, she manages to manage to keep her relationships going with some of the people that she's worked with. Just never really happened for me. And I thought, could be down to me, could be down to the other people. But it made me wonder about the temporary nature of um, of the unit that you allow yourself to get not sucked into, but you become a part of. But it's because it's necessary to kind of to feel one, to feel like a unit, as opposed to separate people. But I think the heartbreaking part, a bit like the elephants dying at the end, was that there's grief involved at the end, obviously. So there was that grief for me.
Yeah, you put a lot of energy into creating that kind of family in a particular environment, and you want to take it with you when you go. Yeah. So I hear also very much what you're saying, Simon, that sometimes out of adversity, um, there's more of a family feeling that develops. I know, for example, there was some research done on, I think, the heart conditions or the heart health of people, for example, in England in world wars compared to, people who lived in cities and things like that. And it was amazing that in a circumstance of great adversity, where people pulled together, the health, their hearts were more healthy. So I think I agree with you about adversity being very much. What other things do you think contribute into bringing people together other than adversity to create that kind of unity? I think you mentioned, Joy, you mentioned some outings that people went on or lunches or things like that. So other than adversity, what do you think contributes to a culture where people feel able to expose their vulnerability, their sufferings, their challenges, and feel like they have that kind of family support?
Mm. I mean, for me, that as I said, that marketing company is my best example. That having I then worked for a music company a bit later on, and there was quite a free flowing kind of nature there too as well. But the marketing company, I think it was I have to say, it was the leader, you know, I think his name was Simon as well. Simon.
Good name.
I'm trying to remember his name. It sounds very familiar. So he had sort of like developed the company from a very small, like 4 or 5 people, and built it into like, I don't know, 10 and then larger. So I think his idea was that everybody should always, you know, he had an idea of a family mentality, despite the fact that the company was expanding. So he was the real power behind the throne, I think. Um, and then and then we also just felt able to talk to each other, spend some time talking to each other, whether it's in the kitchen, you know, getting coffee, teas, you know, all the things that perhaps are missing now with the kind of hybrid way that people are working. Funnily enough, connecting to people, unless you're working, it was, you know, really in the kitchen at the photocopier.
In places you wouldn't think. So he very much set the tone that sort of said, it's good to be family and it's good to really connect with each other, and that made a big difference. Okay, so we've
Absolutely.
got a leader setting the tone and we've got adversity. Is there anything else you wanted to add to that, Simon?
Yeah, and apologies if I'm disappearing off the screen. I think the internet connection I've got is unstable at the moment, so I do apologise in advance. But yeah, I suppose going back to Joy's point, Joy's point, that it is quite rare people connect after you've left an organisation, and I've only had it in, you know, in my career so far, in 2 instances. One, in an organisation I was in for a very long time, where the sort of final cohort before I left was an incredible team. It was a privilege to be part of, and we all got on really well. We all did social things as well together as part of our work, which is really nice, including playing sport together and other things. And even now, my goodness, a lot of years on, we still meet up once a year for a Christmas meal together, which is amazing. I'm not driving it. I'm not very good at sort of, you know, keeping in contact with huge groups of people, but I'm thankful someone is. And recently, just after Christmas, someone said, "Oh, you know, should we have a barbecue in the summer as well?" I was like, "Yeah, do you know what? I'd love to. I'd absolutely love to catch up with you." And that was actually born out of adversity, because that organization, I remember we had a customer satisfaction survey, and it wasn't pretty reading, to be honest. And we had to change the way we communicated, with the way we marketed to people, the way we were at meetings. And there was a disconnect between the people that would turn up at meetings and the brand of the organization, which was staggering, I think, back. And as a result, what happened was some of the clients we used to meet with ended up as being colleagues within a matter of years. They saw the value of being part of what we'd created, and were keen to be part of it themselves, coming on board as colleagues, which was really nice.
So one of you also value what Joy is saying. It sounds like you put so much energy and time into building these beautiful families and teams in your own business. It just feels so sad to lose those amazing relationships. And I know, for example, one of the groups that I think are really good at doing this, staying friends after they've left the work arena, is rugby players. That's a bit of a strange thing to bring in, but it just really impresses me. They have such close connection on the field, you know, and they really have to work together. They put loads of energy into that. But I know rugby players who are still friends now, sort of 40 years later. It's quite incredible. So I understand what you're saying. You put so much time and energy into building these beautiful families and teams. You just don't want to lose that.
No.
It seems like some of the people that became family for you, or became very much part of that team in that time of adversity, was because there was some involvement. So it feels like involvement's a really important one. You know, clients became involved in your purpose and your plan, And
Yeah,
maybe that's
no,
also
exactly.
something that contributes to building a family and a team and an organizational setup, is people can feel they make a contribution, they can be involved, that whatever they contribute can have value. And it's that kind of joint decision making that pulls you together, and shared responsibility.
Yeah, I think you're right, and I think the word family, I'm aware that has positive connotations for people, but it can have negative connotations as well, depending on their family environment.
Sure, sure.
And for me, I'm hugely thankful for the family I was brought up in. So going back to rugby, my dad would take out time out of work to be on the touchline for school rugby matches, and would ferry me to different practices and things, and would always be cheering from the touchline. In an age where that wasn't a thing, you just didn't do that. He would be the lone parent on the touchline,
Oh, wow.
to the point where my other fellow rugby players would say, "Does your dad have to come to every game? He's very loud."
That's,
Yeah, but listen to what he's saying. He's actually cheering us on. He's actually encouraging us.
yeah, yeah. Sounds
And
amazing
And
experience.
it's
that,
being there for you, Simon.
yeah,
That's, I mean, out of, it doesn't matter what anybody else thinks, as your father, he's being there for you. And that would have made you feel very special and wanted and liked and just proud. There's a lot of things just his actions would have meant to you. But I can get what your friends, they're going to josh a bit and say, oh my God, there's your dad again on the
yeah,
touchline screaming.
yeah,
I think one of the things that's also come out is that sometimes it takes one person to take the lead, like that matriarch. So it took one person to take the lead in that company you were talking about, Joy, who said it's really great to be like a family, to connect with each other, to be vulnerable. And for you as well, Simon, took one person to kind of keep the connecting going even after you left the business arena, to keep those events happening once a year. So
yeah.
sometimes we need a matriarch. So
That's so true, and I think there's an intentionality is there as well. Um, so uh, Worldwide Generation, where I am now, was never the plan. So Joy, a bit like yourself, I left, an organization that I was working for as an employee back in 2011. I launched on myself, became a freelancer, and was incredibly happy in terms of what I was doing, training in digital marketing and doing all sorts of cool things, and meeting incredible people as well. And then Worldwide Generation in 2021 became a client. I went in to do consulting, and the first conversation I had with the chief exec is, I'm here. I don't want to work for anybody else ever again. And I definitely don't want to manage a team. I've had enough of teams. Within 2 weeks, the previous marketing manager left, and the chief exec said, "Oh, could you just look after them?" It's like, "Oh, really, really?" And about that time, someone, I can't remember who it was, I think it was a friend, found out and said, "Oh, have you got a team then?" I said, "Yeah, I have." And they said, "Are you going to lead them, or are you going to manage them?" I went, "Wow, that's a great question." And without thinking, I said, "Neither, I'm going to father them." And I suddenly thought, where has that come from? Oh
wow.
my goodness, where has that come from? And I think it was from my experience of being in teams where you have that matriarch, or that's figure that there's intentional about, right, this is going to be a family. I am here to get the best out of you, and I'm going to do that by encouraging you and nurturing you, and keep a bit like we saw with the elephants, protecting you as well, and making sure you can flourish in this environment.
You
It
sound like that wise Yoda character in Star Wars.
it sounds like
I will protect you.
I think
Lovely.
I think it's really valuable having people, and I think that's a really important question, organizations need to ask is, what do we want to pass on to the younger generation? How do we want to empower them? How do we want to equip them? And what kind of environment do we want to create so that they feel protected enough to make mistakes, to grow? I think there's so much more that we could talk about, but I do want to get onto the meerkats. And I think some of these things are going to overlap a little bit.
And Mandy, before you carry on, I do have to disappear because I was meant to attend something at 6. I didn't realise that I was so intent on being here, and I've gained a lot from here. And I'm sorry that I won't be here to make it a 3-way chat, but I'm sure you'll still have a great conversation. But Simon, lovely to meet you too, and catch up with you on LinkedIn probably. And Mandy, we'll talk again.
Emily, and you going.
Yes, I shall. I've broken up the family. I'm so sorry, even though it was temporary, 30 minutes, but
I really appreciate you joining.
goes to show that people form bonds very quickly anyway. Doesn't take long. Doesn't take long. Thank you very much. Simon, see you soon. Mandy, see you soon. Okay.
Bye, Joy. All the best.
Bye-bye.
Are you okay to carry on for a bit, Simon? Bye, Joy. You're okay to carry on for a little bit, or
should I join on a different computer? I think the internet's connections and stable on this one, but it's okay on this other one.
Okay, sure. I'll just give you a minute to do that. So you're going to disappear and then reappear for me to let you in?
I will. Yeah, I'll turn this off in a minute.
We've got 2 of you now. We've got 2 of you now. The live one and the picture one.
Let's get rid of that. There we go. That's better. That's the
okay. So let me just take you into this footage about the meerkats. We'll have a little bit of a discussion about the meerkats, and then we will wrap up.
excellent.
Can see everything okay?
Yes, perfect. Thank you.
Great.
They're just 5 weeks old. Still have a lot to learn about desert survival. The earth is scorched, and the closest river hasn't flowed in 7 years. Finding food is the toughest challenge. Most of it's hiding under sun-baked soil. Adults on guard duty, scanning for danger, ready to sound the alarm. It's safe for the pup's lessons to begin. First, digging. It looks. An adult can dig its own body weight every few seconds. But for a pup, it's easier to beg. Why not let the adults do the hard work? But not all handouts make for a simple meal. A scorpion
The adult has already disabled its stinger, but its pincers are still fully functional. Learning how to deal with dangerous animals is a vital African desert skill. All too soon, it's time for a break. We need to find shade in the searing sun. Yet. In Africa's Kalahari Desert, a young meerkat is face to face with a Cape cobra. One-on-one, he's in big trouble. But when his family hear the call, the rest. This will be one of the most important lessons of all. How to handle a venomous cobra. If they can't see the snake off their territory, the entire family remains at risk. The pups now know their secret to living in this inhospitable desert: teamwork.
Right. So any kind of thoughts that kind of jumped out at you as you were watching that little bit of video footage about the meerkats?
That was really insightful, actually. I think the first one is the learning from example, and there's a power in the demonstration of what the younger meerkats are meant to be learning, which I thought was wonderful. That it probably wouldn't happen in meerkat world, but if you think about how many times we tell people what they should be doing,
Absolutely.
rather than actually show them or get alongside them and help and support them and say this is how we do things and demonstrate it. And you know, from a sort of bizarre analogy, if you think of I'm not sure if into Star Trek at all, but I remember the different types of, you know, Jean-Luc Picard was probably one of the favorite ones, but he always said, make it so. He always gave out the commands, whereas Captain Kirk would actually go on the landing parties and sort things out and roll his sleeves up, and was a very different form of leader within that series. And I think the other thing as well, you know, touching on that, especially the bit you showed at the end, I was trying to equate it to a business setting, and could you imagine? Could you imagine one of the meerkats and saying, "Oh no, just go and sort the snake out. I'm too busy in meetings. I've got too much on. I'm too important to do that." That doesn't happen. Everyone gets involved when there's a risk to the team, when there's a risk to the business in particular. You know, everyone should be involved within that.
Wow. I love that. I love both those understandings and insights. And I love the way that when we observe animals, they just inspire in us because they're so amazing at how they relate and survive. They just inspire us to have such creative ways of thinking and just being able to see things on a whole different level. So what I liked about your first example of kind of learning, not just by telling somebody what to do, but learning by coming alongside them and showing them. What I kind of liked a little bit about that as well is the with the scorpion, you know, the older adult scorpion bit off the sting. So in other words, didn't give the apprentice or the person you're kind of showing how things should be done, didn't give them a task that was too much,
Yeah.
that was too heavy, was just going to be,
Yeah.
they wouldn't manage. But they still, it didn't bite off the pincers, left the pincers on. So there was still enough challenge to kind of grow that young meerkat to know how to manage the pincers, or eat it from the back forwards rather than eat from the front backwards, with those pincers. So if you applied that in a business setting, it also gives people a chance to still feel like valued because they've been able to really overcome some serious challenges or really learn some new skills. You haven't done it for them. So I think that's also was kind of a really nice example. And yeah, I like the one where they mob the snake. What kind of the two things that sort of stood out for me with that is, first of all, they kind of raised their tails. They responded very immediately. They didn't hang around. As soon as they heard that little meerkat call, they raced across. They didn't kind of hang around. But their tails made them look a bit bigger. And sometimes when we're facing risks, sometimes we have to kind of fake it to make it. You've got to kind of make it, have a little bit of faith in that situation of fear, to have that little bit of courage, because without the courage, well, you're just not going to really move forward.
No.
And then I quite liked that they tried that their attack was from so many different angles, so they didn't just go from one direction. And I quite like that as well, so that when you're only one of you, you can only go in one direction, one answer, one effort. But if there's a whole group of you, they're diverse answers, diverse efforts, more energy. So yeah, I thought that was just really great as well.
That's superb. Actually, there's a great quote by a leadership guy in the States, guy called Craig Rochelle, and I'm going to give you my own phrase of it, but it's about true innovation comes from a tight place, not from blue sky. And
Great quote.
I think it's probably not very accurate. I'll have to dig out the actual one, but that's always stuck with me. And he gives a number of examples where him and his team were facing issues, and that's where the real innovation happens to actually overcome those issues. A bit like those meerkats coming in from different angles. That's a tight space. We have a snake we need to deal with. How can we get rid of it? Okay, we've done this. Let's try this. Let's try the other thing. And I think that picture of the meerkats is incredibly powerful. Of that true innovation coming from threat or risk or a tight space.
And I think that's what I love so much about learning from them, is that we carry the picture in our head afterwards. It's not just, sometimes when we learn facts and see lots of stuff written, it kind of goes in one ear and out the other. But if we carry a visualized picture in our minds, it kind of has a more long-term, ongoing impact. I know we were going to, well, I think there are two things I just wanted to go through briefly before we end off. So the first one is just, I guess, what struck me. Maybe not everybody who watched those videos would be drawn to that. Is that both of them kind of mentioned how dry things were, how hard resources were to be found. With the meerkats, the river hadn't had any water in it for 7 years. I guess it just made me so much more aware of climate change, that weather conditions are just becoming more severe. And it highlighted for me just how much they give to us, even in these lessons we've learned tonight. But in an industrialized society, we sometimes even unintentionally cause the kind of climate change that then impacts those that are more vulnerable. It could be the animals, it could be, I work quite a lot with the Maasai, who have just gone through drought after drought after drought and lost a lot of their livestock and things like that. Do you have any thoughts or ideas or feelings? Because I think what I valued about the meerkats is they didn't give up. Things became hard, but they found a way. And I think a lot of us we're also looking for answers as to how we can be a solution to the climate change that we're experiencing. Just wondered if you had any thoughts about that.
I suppose two things spring to mind. The first is actually coming back to the whole thing about family. When I worked for the YMCA, one of their strap lines was belong, contribute, thrive. And it didn't matter who you were, whether you were homeless and then coming into a YMCA accommodation, you actually were encouraged to feel like you belonged, or you were made to feel like you belonged. And I've experienced that in a project myself on a local scale, not a YMCA project, but something different, where people felt like it was their family, like they belonged, and then they were able to support and contribute, and then we saw some of them get jobs and thrive in things as well. So I think for me, the meerkats, that belonging, they're actually part of something bigger. They're a part of a family, part of a team, helps them play their parts. And even though the situation is bad for them in terms of the terrain they're working within for food and etc., they can actually thrive to an extent, although they shouldn't be able to. There's something better than the some of their, some of the parts, I suppose, or the one meerkat. And I think coming back to climate change, there are climate deniers out there, and even I would say to them, look at how we're treating the world. Even if you don't believe that there is climate change, we're not treating in a way that's sustainable. We're not dealing with waste in a sustainable way, or consumption in a sustainable way. And it is affecting parts of the planet. You have to look at the plastic pollution, for example, in particular. I think what we're trying to do within Worldwide Generation is take companies, nations, communities on a transformation process. So some people will look at climate change and some of the issues of the world, and they say, what difference does it make if I consume less, or I recycle, or if I use energy in a different way, compared to some of the big polluters, the oil companies, and some of the big manufacturing companies, for example. And I think we've all got our role to play. What we're finding with some of these bigger companies is that there is a want to change. Maybe that's too strong, a need to change. So mandatory reporting is coming in through different frameworks and standards, and it's affecting consumers. So consumers are now making decisions and choices. They're better informed where they're going to be spending their money and how sustainable their company actually is. It's also affecting investment as well. So banks that we work with are saying, we will give better rates of loans to companies that can prove their sustainability credentials. We will give better products, or better incentives as well. And it's something we're working with a number of organisations at the moment to make sure that while there is a stick, and rightly so, for not complying, not getting their act together, not cleaning up things, but also there's a carrot there to make sure there's some kind of incentive for them to do so. And it comes back to something we talked about before the recording started. So
I was going to come back to that as well.
yeah, sure. So ESG is okay. It's okay. It's quite strong, environmental, social governance. But what tends to happen is people focus on the environmental, and although that we might say, well, hey, come on, someone, we need to focus on the environment. Look at climate change. Yes, we do. But if we focus on the environment, what we do is then we end up putting a plaster on the problems and sorting out the problems rather than looking at the causes, which is people's behavior. So for us within Worldwide Generation, we talk about C, we focus on the social, the behavioral change, getting people to think differently about how they consume, how they create, how they manufacture, thinking about their supply chains, and thinking about what can we do as a business to change our own perception of what we're doing, but actually make it a reality in terms of helping our people see that as well. Once you get the social sorted, the funding, the economics should play into place as well. People should be looking at the profits and saying, where's this coming from? Are people actually really caring for their teams, their clients? Are they caring for the environment? And then the environment almost becomes a value add at the end. The environment gets blessed, gets improved through that, because you've changed the behavior change. And give you an example of that. There's a great project on social media on YouTube called, I think it's called the Ocean Purpose Project, which is about ocean cleanup. And there was just an aha moment video where there was all these fantastic devices they'd created, I think in Indonesia, to stop plastic bottles flowing into the sea from rivers. And they tested one, it worked to an extent, but the plastics had got through, and they created another one and it stopped the plastic. And I remember seeing a video where they talked about going upstream to see what was actually causing it. And there were two young lads, huge baskets full of plastic bottles, just throwing them over a bridge. And I was like, what are you guys doing? Oh, we get paid to dump these. And you suddenly realize it's not an environmental issue, it's a social issue, it's an education issue. That's where we have to tackle the social first.
Yeah, unfortunately, we're going to need to end quite soon because my computer I thought would last a lot longer on the battery, but it
No
seems
problem.
it's going to close quite soon. But maybe just one to end off with. I like the fact that you go to the social and they go to the personal. So for me, I kind of wanting to advance emotional and ecological intelligence. I feel like when people are really shifted on an emotional level, because, for example, if you talk about the oceans, they've swum with the dolphins, and then they've seen a dolphin with, that dies and it's cut open and there's plastic inside of it, or its tail is got deep marks because of wire and stuff like that all kind of cut into it. It's just kind of, or even today as we've looked at these videos, when we seen the mob together, it's just an emotional response, an experiential response that makes us want to make a difference, as opposed to saying, oh no, that's not really anything that's got anything to do with me. I don't really feel it. I don't really have to be a part of it. I don't really need to make a difference. Did you find that kind of talking through some really valuable things about organizations, about climate change, that being able to watch a video of the elephants or the meerkats was a valuable way of launching into these kind of discussions?
Yeah, hugely, and it's given me some food for thought of how to share that with other colleagues now as well.
Okay, that's
Thank
fantastic.
you.
Thank you so much, Michael, for the time that you spent, for your amazing quotes, your lovely ideas and thoughts, and for all the incredible things that you're doing. So
Thank you, man.
lovely
It's been a
to
real
spend
privilege
some time with you.
to be with you. Thank you.
Okay, bye.